Hey cuties, PeachY here. Welcome back to a new video, and in this video we're going to be checking out all 5 diaries from the first Haunt Couture collection. I've had this idea for a while now, and I just thought it would be a cool little story time video listening to all the ghouls' stories and how they've developed in all these years since the last diary entries. I'm also going to leave timestamps down below in the description box in case you want to look for a specific diary. I hope this video doesn't turn out to be too long, but just sit back, relax, maybe grab some snacks and just enjoy the different stories from all our favorite ghouls. So let's get started. First up, we have Clawdeen Wolf. The first entry takes place on the 4th of January. Where do I even begin? It feels like it's been at least 120 full moons since I wrote in my diary. Mom says I over-exaggerate when I'm stressed out, but seriously, it's been a while. I've been busy with the new Scaremester at Monster High, hanging with my BFFs, and correcting the fashion faux pas of other monsters. I haven't had time to write it all down, so get over it. Most importantly, I've been using this new thing called Instagram and posting to my fashion account at Haunt Couture. It's the premier place online to get great fashion tips and of course a daily scoop on my hashtag OOTD. Running this blog has been a full-time job, but every great fashion empire has to start somewhere, right? Except I have tons of pics of my brother Claude and my BFF Draculaura on their dates, clogging up my fashion timeline. Their relationship used to bother me, but I can at least like their pics now without my fur standing on end. Please never let me be one of those monsters who needs to document every waking moment of their undead lives. Except for fashion. Fashion should always be documented, especially mine. Anyway, I bet the fashion grades didn't have to deal with an annoying little sister photobombing their posts or getting snot on their carefully curated closet. Howleen, if you're reading this, you're one bold wolf. If you are, please trust you'll pay for ruining my new purple leather miniskirt. Ugh, why can't I run my fashion empire from London? Claudia wouldn't mind a sibling in her room, right? Next entry, 10th of January. Why anyone thought that Cleo denial should be the captain of fear leaders is beyond me. Today's fear leading practice was worse than Draculaura's tofu and veggie screechsta. Cleo's pyramid is a total disaster and Frankie lost a leg during practice. Although the real drama started when I made one tiny but true comment about the dire state of our fear-leading uniforms. I thought Cleo was going to completely unravel with rage. Our uniforms are in desperate need of an update and I'm obviously the most fashionable monster to do it. After practice, I headed over to Draculaura's house to study for my advanced creature econ test. Trying to study at my house is impossible with this many wolves running around and I have to ace this exam. It's so quiet and peaceful here, which means no interruptions or pesky brothers and sisters to break my focus, although Draculaura's dad doesn't seem to like a lot of visitors. He's about as welcoming as Wolfsbane and not at all talkative. Maybe he was in a bad mood because Draculaura was experimenting with her plant-based recipes again. He looked less than thrilled with Draculaura's sliders, even though they weren't that bad. Not like I'd ever admit that to her though. Me, a wolf, eating plant-based meat? You better bite your tongue. 16th of January. Fear leading practice was cancelled yesterday, which meant no Cleo to deal with, so I headed to the mall with my BFFs Frankie, Stein, and Draculaura instead. And there were for sure a few ghouls and monsters lurking about and in need of some furious fashion tips. What? I'm not about to let someone walk around looking like a fashion frightmare. They'll thank me later. Anyways, since we decided to do a fashion show to raise money for new uniforms, us 3 ghouls started to scour the mall for the perfect outfits. We landed in this scary boutique with even scarier pieces. The looks were to die for, but I know better than to ask mom and dad for money for new clothes. I already exceeded my budget for back to ghoul shopping and dad is still growling about that shopping trip. At one point, I even thought Frankie was going to cause a blackout cause our bolts were sparking like crazy when Draculaura mentioned making the clothes ourselves. Sometimes I wonder if that ghoul is stitched just a bit too tight. 19th of January. I love full moon nights with my family, though I'll never tell them that. My siblings are all so competitive and when the full moon is out, forget it. It's every wolf for him or herself. Well, dad pulls out the grill and cooks every steak to perfection. The rarer, the better for me. I race with my brothers and sisters and play a little basketball with Claude. Let me tell ya, sports at home is so much better than at school because at least these monsters can try to keep up with me. Plus, I can look as fashionable as ever. I have so many looks for the full moon, I could change 3 times and still not put a dent in my closet. We always end the night with s'mores and a campfire while mom and dad snuggle under strawberry blanket with mugs of hot chocolate. It's all perfect until some wolf ruffles the fur of another wolf, and then we all have to go inside. Just another day with this crazy pack I call family. 21st of January. Did I mention that Clawdeen makes me howlin' mad sometimes? The royal drama queen is not on top of the planning for this fashion show and was furiously irritated when I wanted to make a tiny few suggestions. But the squad was so into it, they actually nominated me to run the show. That's right, February Frights is being run by yours truly and is going to be the most fantastic show Monster High has ever seen. I just hope Frankie knows what she's doing to make our outfits. Oh, I should check on that. BRB. 26th of January. What a fashion frightmare. Frankie looked like she could use a serious jump start at school today. I've never seen that ghoul look so dead tired. When Draculaura and I asked about what was wrong, Frankie looked like she could burst into tears. The 3 screen printer she invented to make clothes for the fashion show is a complete bust. She can't figure out how to make it work, and that means no fashion show and no new fear-leading outfit. I was having such a bad day, even Howleen steered clear of our room this afternoon. I was so excited about the show, it was going to be classroom content for Haunt Couture. Excuse me while I howl into my pillow. 28th of January. Both Claude and Cleo must have gotten toenails in their sloppy toes today because they were both in monster mood. Cleo ended practice early and stormed off in a huff, and I waited around for Claude to give me a ride home from school, and he was growlier than usual. I usually love hanging out with my brother, but today I would have rather walked home in brand new shoes than deal with his mood. I tried to ask what was wrong, but he just said sometimes monsters just need some space and privacy. I hope he's not fighting with Draculaura. You know what's worse than your brother and your BFF dating? Your brother and your BFF breaking up! Fiercely, if one more thing happens, I swear I'm moving to London with Claudia. 31st of January. What a day! Fear-leading practice was cancelled again, and Cleo was a no-show. She's actually been MIA all week, and the halls of Monster High have never been more peaceful. I wanted to go back to that fabulous boutique we saw at the mall, but Draculaura insisted we put together a scare package and take it over to Cleo instead. That girl is lucky she's my best friend because this was not on my to-do list today. I suggested instead of a scare package, it should be an intervention to discuss several of Cleo's fashion faux pas, but decided to table it. Anyway, we put together a few goodies, including the yummy spookies from the coffin bean, and headed over to the denials. Frankie didn't look like she could start a car battery, let alone cheer someone up. Poor girl was still down about the 3D screen printer in the fashion show. Okay, now listen, I have my issues with Cleo, but the poor girl looked like she could use a friend, a makeover, and a basket of spookies. Turns out she and Deuce broke up. She's been putting up a good front, but I can totally see through the mascara. This breakup hurt. After we reassured Cleo that she would be fine without Deuce and that we would be here for her, she seemed to be doing a bit better. Now I think I know why Claude was in such a ferocious mood, and so did Draculaura, because she took off with the quickness to go find him. Wanna hear the good news? Cleo helped Frankie figure out the 3 screen printer! Cleo had an old bracelet with magical mummy thread that could help Frankie's printer. I don't know the exact details because I tend to zone out when Cleo speaks, but the most important thing is that the fashion show is back on, girlfriend, which means this wolf is back on the prowl to make this the best fashion show ever with only a few days left. 3rd of February. February Frights is in a few days. Frankie is locked down in her lab, printing all the classroom designs as sketched. Even Cleo came through and designed a fire outfit that I had to give 2 paws up, although she looked a little too smug about that. I gave Claude a hard time for not giving me the wolfsbane tea about Cleo and Deuce, but I get it. He was sworn to secrecy and in a rough spot because he hates keeping things from anybody. I'm just glad he's not fighting with Draculaura. Oof, can you imagine the drama of a werewolf vampire breakup? Last entry, 5th of February. The fashion show was a complete success. I thought the Clawdeen was going to burst when we walked the runway in our totally Haunt Couture looks. I mean, come on, this furious jacket paired with this edgy leather skirt and topped off with open toe heels and gold details. Ooh, the ghouls will be drooling for weeks. And my eye coffin has been buzzing for hours already with screams and DMs on Instagram. You best believe I can't wait to post more pics of my ghouls stalking down the runway looking fierce and fabulous. Now with this behind us, hopefully things calm down a bit. What am I talking about? There's always fresh drama brewing in the cauldron at Monster High. I just need to make sure my outfit is on point for all the scares and scandals ahead. Next, we have Cleo the Nile. First entry is called First Month, 8th Day. It feels like it's been ages since I wrote on my diary. Father is constantly reminding me to write down all my musings and activities for historical record, but do all my thoughts really need to be read by a bunch of monsters hundreds of years from now? Anyway, I woke up with a feeling of impending doom, and I immediately ran to the mirror. Yes, still stylish as ever, so it wasn't that, but suddenly a voice rang from the hallway. Cleo, it is unbecoming of a royal to sleep so late. Think of the example you are setting. Oh my Ra! My sister Nefra is home. Doom is no longer impending, it has arrived, and it's wearing stilettos. First month, 10th day. Can someone remind Nefra she is no longer captain of the fear-leading squad anymore? All morning, she kept dropping little tips and reminders about the duty and sacred responsibility as fear captain. Father would have been horrified if I shoved my breakfast in Nefra's face, and I would have been subject to the lecture about maintaining a certain decorum, blah blah blah, and the expected behavior of a royal. So I just did the next best thing and ignored her royal annoyance by going over notes for both my history exam and designs for new fear-leading uniforms. Before Nefra could prattle on, I quickly grabbed my things and scooted out the door as fast as I could, where my boyfriend Deuce was waiting to give me a ride to school. I'm so glad Deuce's mom finally let him get his driver's license. Driving to school together has been absolutely awesome, since it gives Deuce and I a chance to make a royal entrance every day. On the way to school, Deuce kept going on and on about a new gourmet screechsa place he wanted to try out, but today I had but one thing on my mind, which was fear leading. Using a little geometry, I had planned an awesome pyramid I wanted the squad to perform at practice. I just knew it was going to be fantastic and show Nefra exactly who's in charge now that she's gone. But oh my Ra! During practice, Frankie lost a leg, Draculaura was going on about some type of bake sale, and Clawdeen Wolf had the audacity to not only interrupt me, but also suggest new uniforms before I could even share my ideas. As fear captain and a royal, I wasn't about to let Clawdeen Wolf disrespect me or upstage me, so I quickly told the squad I was organizing a fashion show fundraiser to raise money for uniforms. Problem averted, except now I have to actually find time to organize a fashion show. First month, 11th day. After yesterday's disastrous fear-leading practice and talking myself into planning a fashion show, I decided I needed some retail therapy. Deuce thankfully was more than happy to drop his little pickup basketball game with Claude and to drive me to the mall and carry all my bags. Besides, I needed something new for our upcoming date night. While shopping at the mall, Deuce and I ran into Lagoona Blue, cruising the stores in her always alarming beach threads. I like Lagoona. She's super nice, and her surfing pics on that new Instagram app are pretty spectacular if you're into that. But the poor ghoul just will not let me put together a few looks for her. Father says that a good leader does not lead by force, so I suppose I shall let her come to me when she's ready. Lagoona was once a fear leader, so I invited her to be a part of the fashion show. Ooh, I guess that is one way to coax her into a new look. Anyway, after visiting a few more boutiques, including a new one that had the most gorgeous clothes I had ever seen, I had Deuce take me home. Of course, Nefra raised an eyebrow as I walked through the door, and I simply replied, research for fear leading, and shrugged as I handed my bags to a servant. I count the days until Nefra finds some new place to haunt and just leaves me alone. First month, 14th day. Oh my Ra! I don't even know where to begin. I had a date with Deuce to finally go to that screechsa place he's been talking about. So naturally I came home and took the next few hours to plan my outfit and what staircase I wanted to use to make an entrance once he arrived. As I was getting ready, Nefra entered my room without knocking, mind you, as the few future queen is allowed to enter whatever room she pleases, including mine, and began going on about another fabulous party she attended abroad. I have heard about every party Nefra has ever been to, and quite frankly, these parties all sound like they're all full of the most pretentious monsters ever. I mean, honestly, who can stand to be around monsters that full of themselves? Anyways, as I was getting ready, Nefra spied my free-leading notes, including my new uniform designs and the stuff for the fashion show. I tried to distract her, but it was too late. Are you furiously planning on these designs for the new free-leading outfits and the fashion show to raise money? Doesn't that seem a little 2000 and late? As she placed the designs on my bed and walked out, Nefra casually tossed one more queenly remark over her shoulder. Going on another date with Deuce, I see. Every good captain and proper royal should know when to set aside such minor distractions. Of course, before I could even reply, Deuce was being announced at the doors, and I had to hurry to finish getting ready and make him wait the requisite 5 minutes so I could make a proper entrance. Deuce was so excited about the screech to place, but I just couldn't focus. Nefra's words kept ringing in my ears. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was too distracted and I wasn't cut out to be fear captain. I mean, our pyramid was a disaster the other day, and my idea for the fashion show, was it not trendy enough? All throughout dinner, my head was spinning as Deuce waved his hand in front of my face, saying, "Hey, unearthed to Cleo, you cool? How's your double Gouda screechza?" But I wasn't okay. On the drive back home, I could barely say 2 words, but as soon as we arrived at my house and Deuce walked me to my door, I gathered all my royal training and faced him. Deuce, I think we should break up. The words kind of just hung there, and Deuce just stared for a second. He shook his head and replied, "I don't understand. Where is this coming from? The screech to place wasn't that bad, right?" I stood up, straightened, and repeated myself. As a royal, it is my duty to put my responsibilities first, and I can't have my squad falling apart from my distractions. So yes, we should break up. For once, I was glad I couldn't see behind Deuce's glasses as he mumbled some words about understanding before driving away. I quietly entered the house and hurried to my room before anyone, especially Nefra, could see me completely unravel. What have I done? First month, 15th day. I can't face anyone today. There's no way I can face school or fear-leading practice after my breakup with Deuce. If I feel this bad, Deuce must be hurting from a broken heart and turning everything to stone as we speak. What a mess. If you need me, I'll be in my sarcophagus with my nightlight and his set. Maybe I'll just stay there forever. It wasn't so bad that first time if you don't count the spending thousands of years in suffocating darkness. First month, 22nd day. If this were the old country, Clawdeen Wolf would be scrubbing the pyramids by hand for her insolence. Given everything going on, I was having an off day yesterday. Clawdeen saw that as her opportunity to steal the planning of the fashion show from right underneath me. Now it's called February Frights Fashion Show. You know what's frightening? That wolf thinking she has a better fashion sense than me. To make matters worse, I had this dream that Deuce was every member of my free-leading squad and Nefra was judging the team on routines we hadn't learned yet. I was yelling, but no one could hear my voice until I finally screamed, "I asked for screechza with Monsterella, not Gouda." I must have screamed in my sleep because his set looked quite annoyed before I headed down for breakfast. Father must have noticed my lack of sleep as well because he had one of the servants make me a special tea before I headed off to school. But had I known that dream would be the best part of my day, I would have simply stayed home. For one, I forgot Deuce was no longer my ride to school, so I had to hurry since fashionably late meant detention at Monster High. Once I got there, it felt like everyone was staring at me. I mean, they probably were. My outfit was fierce as always, but something felt different. Did they know about me and Deuce? After during lunch, I spied Deuce hanging and laughing with his basketball buddies. Excuse me, shouldn't he be devastated after being dumped by someone of my royal stature? I was so angry at Deuce's cheery face, I almost knocked Claude Wolf over as I stormed to my locker. Claude and I dated briefly at one time and have maintained friendly relations. So I guess it's that past history plus my shock at Deuce's seemingly good mood that made me tell Claude about our breakup in the most unbecoming way. Claude's fur noticeably stood on end and he stammered a few words. Why are monsters always stammering? Before confessing, he already knew. Deuce had told him a few days prior. And of course, Claude promised not to say anything to anyone. I asked Claude if he had been properly devastated after we broke up, and after more stammering, he said yes, but it sounded like his tongue was covered in fur too. So I wonder why Deuce isn't just as upset as I am. First month, 26th day. I've been avoiding my ghoul friends and my squad for days, and now everything is completely unraveling. Gholia filled me in on all the details after school. As a royal, it is my job to encourage scientific exploration that should and could lead to progress for the greater good. But Frankie has gotten herself so twisted in knots trying to invent a printer that could print clothes. I think we may have to cancel the fashion show and any shot at new uniforms. I was in such a ferocious mood by the time I joined Nefra and Father for dinner that not even my favorite meal of stuffed grape leaves could cheer me up. Father inquired as to why my mood was so somber, and Nefra took it upon herself to explain. Oh, Father, Cleo just needs to learn that uneasy lies the head that carries the lead pom-poms. As a proper captain and second in line for the throne, should not be distracted by frivolity, but focused on the tasks ahead. When I tell you that was it, I had had enough of Nefra's haughty attitude, and maybe a future queen shouldn't be so stuck on past glories and go find some other place to haunt. I yelled, but before Nefra could retort, Father's voice bellowed through the dining hall, startling the servants and stunning both of us into silence. He took both of our hands and looked at us deeply before speaking. Nefra, he began, a true queen must know and respect when her reign is over, and a big sister must always be a friend, not a foe, to their little sister. Nefra tucked her head in shame as Father turned to me. My Cleo, you are a natural leader, but a good leader must always trust herself and know when to extend that trust to those she leads. We received a mini version of the lecture and we ate the rest of our dinner in gloomy silence. First month, 28th day. I was just in the middle of new uniform designs when there was a small knock at my door and Nefra stuck her head inside. I was shocked because Nefra never knocks and I forgot my place by rudely asking what she wanted. Nefra looked taken aback and I cleared my throat and there was a silence so awkward even his set climbed back into her basket. As a queen, I believe apologies are in order, Nefra began, and before I could protest, she continued. And I believe I owe the first one to you. I do apologize for not respecting your role as Fear Captain Cleo. I have to remember that even though you're my little sister and next in line for the throne, you are still your own person and you deserve respect and support to lead. I blinked several times because I was truly rendered speechless, but I accepted her apology and apologized for the crosswords at dinner. And you know what? For a second there, it truly felt as though Nefra and I were sisters and friends. But then, of course, she wrinkled her nose at my new shoes and I was brought back to reality. Some things never change. Second month, second day. Where shall I even begin? The last few days have been truly exciting and surprising. I guess it all started with the last free leading practice that didn't happen. I barely made it through school that day, but one sight of Deuce walking to class with Rochelle Goyle, and it felt like my insides were being embalmed with hot spookachinos. I headed straight home after school to focus on how to save my squad when Nefra stuck her head in my door without knocking again and announced that my friends were there. My squad was so worried about me, they showed up with a scare package to cheer me up. Even Clawdeen managed to retract her claws for a sec and tag along too. As they pressed me to tell them what was going on, I knew it was time to let them in on the breakup of me with Deuce. As I told my friends, they gathered me in a group hug and reminded me that a relationship doesn't define who I am. I remembered about Claude and told Draculaura that he had been keeping the secret. You'd think for 16,000 years old, she would have learned to wait until one is done speaking before running out the door. Suddenly, Frankie was coming apart at the seams about the 3-screen printer, and I knew what I had to do. I snuck a glance at Nephra, who gave me a reassuring nod, and I took Frankie over to my private jewelry box and put a very special bracelet in her hand. Tie it. It was Clawdeen wearing and keeping, as Mummy's looking fabulous gave our family a beautiful bracelet full of special threads and looms that can weave anything together. I knew that this bracelet could save Frankie's machine in our fashion show. Father was right. I was a natural leader, and it was time to stop being wrapped up in myself and lead my squad to victory. Last entry, 2nd month, 5th day. We did it! The fear leaders raised enough money for brand new uniforms. The February Frights fashion show was a complete success. I worked with Frankie and Clawdeen to get the outfits designed, and I gotta say, Clawdeen Wolf's design touches really brought these looks to life. Don't ever tell her that I said this, but I felt like a real queen as I strut the runway in my high-waisted jogger set paired with a glittery mummy fringed robe that Clawdeen finished with metallic spiderweb details. The school was all screams and howls for our looks. But my favorite part was at the end. When I strut down the runway feeling totally great and still heartbroken, there I saw Deuce smiling and cheering as I approached, and to my total shock, so was Nephra. I couldn't believe they both showed up. As I strut back the runway, I turned back to look at Deuce, and I swear he gave me a little wink. I think this is going to be a very interesting Scaremester indeed. Up next, we have Lagoona Blues Diary, starting off with the first entry on the 5th of January. Crikey, it feels like it's been ages since I wrote on my diary. Between hanging out with my fave monsters, prepping for the upcoming sweetmeats, or studying for yet another exam, I haven't had any time to write it all down. I have not been surfing either. The waves are so small. It's just been these little ankle snapper waves every time I go to the beach. There's gotta be some good waves coming soon. 10th of January. School today was totally crazy. I barely made it to homeroom because I stayed a bit too long in my hydration station. The weather has been so dry lately, my skin feels super yucks. I've been trying to take dips in the pool between classes to keep my skin from drying out, but it's not always possible. Anyway, when I saw the time, I freaked out and had to make a mad dash to get dressed. Put Neptuna in her fishbowl and get to school quick. From there on out, it was bonkers with a pop quiz in oceanography. Pretty sure I aced it. An intense lecture from Mr. Hackington, scary, and a ton of homework from geology. By the time I made it to the pool to lead swim practice, I was beat. This upcoming meet is so important, and as the captain of the swim team, I want to lead our team to another victory. As I was running practice drills in my head, I realized I wasn't the only ghoul having a bad day. So were the fear leaders. I caught a glimpse of their practice while I was on my way to the pool, and yikes! Draculaura was on top of what looked like a super complicated pyramid while Cleo shouted directions. Suddenly the pyramid came crashing down. Frankie's leg went flying in the air, and I heard Cleo scream so loud the windows on the gym rattled. I'll always miss being a fear leader, but today I was definitely glad to be in the water rather on dry land. 13th of January. Still no rain. Now I'm getting up a full hour earlier to soak up in my hydration station before school, plus a couple of dips in the pool after lunch and before study hall. My hair is going to be the gnarliest shade of blue by the time we get some real rain. Anyway, I was in desperate need of some new floppies, so I headed to the mall the other day to grab a pair. I usually keep my outfits pretty basic because sometimes I need to go from surf to turf pretty quickly, but I definitely saw some pretty fantastic clothes I may have to grab for a date night with Gil. That's if we ever get one. I've been so busy with practice, I've had to cancel 2 of our date nights with Gil. He sounded so bummed the last time I had to cancel, but thank goodness he's so understanding and knows how fiercely I take my role as captain. I'll definitely have to make it up to him soon though. While at the mall, I saw Cleo the Nile shopping with Deuce. Well, more like Cleo was shopping while Deuce, the poor bloke, was like her personal baggage handler. I like Cleo. She's actually pretty funny when you hang with her one-on-one one. I know she can be a handful for a lot of monsters, but I like to find something good about everyone. My dad always says making friends is like learning to surf. It's all about finding your balance. Oh, and because I was once a fear leader, Cleo invited me to be part of the Feeling Fashion Show fundraiser. How sweet. 17th of January. Still no rain, although it would be totally appropriate if it just poured already. I went to the pool after school to run a few more laps without the team. I wanted to try and shave a few seconds off my time, plus what better way to stay hydrated? Except I totally forgot I had agreed to meet Gil at our secret spot right about now. As soon as I remembered, I dashed out of there and ran to our spot. But Gil, of course, was already long gone. I then started to send him a text until I saw on my iCoven he had already left me one, saying, "You must be at the pool again. Couldn't wait any longer." Ugh, how could I forget my date with Gil? I sent him a flurry of texts, but no answer. By the time I got home and had a video chat with my parents, I was in a real funk. I tried to distract them from my bad mood by talking about the fashion show, and of course Mom was super excited and made me promise to take lots of pictures, while Dad got all flustered. As we ended our call, Mom said it's been still as a pond and she couldn't sense any storms coming our way. Dad looked a little worried, but I reassured him that I was okay. I checked for any new texts from Gil, but nothing. My parents may not see any storms on the horizon, but I could sense one had just landed on my front door. 19th of January. Yesterday was really weird. Even the air felt different. I woke up and the sky was overcast, and for a moment I thought it would actually rain. I checked my phone again and still no text from Gil. Once I got to school, things got even weirder. As I was looking for Gil, I ran into Frankie, who looked totally buggered when I asked her about the fashion show. The poor ghoul looked like I had poured water on her bolts as she rushed away with her arms slightly dangling. My skin was so dry it felt like it was cracking, so after lunch I headed to the pool for a quick dip. While I was underwater, I could see a figure at the edge of the pool, so I darted there quickly hoping it was Gil. I came up too quickly, splashing water all over. "Deuce? Oh, sorry, mate," I said, trying to get my fins about me. "I thought you were someone else." Deuce just somberly shook his head, and I could see the poor bloke was absolutely miserable. Even his snakes looked less snaky than usual. When I asked him what was wrong, he clammed up a bit and finally told me. Cleo broke up with him out of the blue. Crikey, Deuce and Cleo broke up? They're like the it couple of Monster High. I tried to make Deuce feel better and gave him some advice. Breakups are like surfing. You just gotta ride the wave until it's done, and before you know it, you're back on solid ground. Deuce gave me a sort of weird nod before thanking me and heading off to class. The rest of the day, I felt like a fish out of water. How could I give another monster love advice when I had made such a mess of things with Gil and can't even seem to find him anywhere? 24th of January. Swim meet was today. I dreamt about the meet all night, literally running the whole meet over and over in my head. I felt prepared, and by the time the afternoon rolled around, I was so ready to swim, I barely remember changing into my swimsuit. I searched the stands for Gil, but I didn't see him. Was Gil that angry that he wasn't going to come to my swim meet? He had never missed a meet before. I heard the crack of the starter pistol and dived into the water so smoothly I barely made a ripple on the surface. I glided along the water surface in a full concentration, the sound of the crowd like a dull roar in my ears. As I finished the first part, my sprint and flipped around to return, I caught a glimpse of something in the crowd, so I raced back towards my team and leapt out of the water. I scanned the crowd and spotted someone walking towards the door. It was Gil! I was so happy to see him, but so confused by his leaving, I almost forgot we were in the middle of a swim meet, and as captain, I had to stay to cheer on my team. As soon as the meet was over, I barely registered our win. I dashed into the hallway to look for Gil, but he was nowhere to be seen. When I got home, I was totally knackered and worried. Gil and I have had so many strains in our relationship, mostly with his parents hating the fact that I'm a saltwater monster dating their freshwater monster son. Did my focus on swimming finally give his parents enough bait to convince Gil to stay away from me? My worries must have traveled across the ocean, because before I knew it, my dad was waiting at the end of the dock for me. It was so good to see him, but seeing his face, I could tell he was concerned, especially if he swam all the way here just to check on me. I reassured assured him I was okay. I was just worried about, well, everything. He placed his fin on mine and told me everything would be fine. I can't go making waves when I needed to just let things happen naturally. He stayed for a while longer and then headed back. I watched him until I couldn't see the moon glistening off his scales anymore. 29th of January. Ugh, is every monster and ghoul at Monster High fighting or what? Gil is still avoiding me. Couldn't he just talk to me so I can explain and apologize? I saw Draculaura fleeing the creepateria in tears yesterday after a pretty intense chat with her boyfriend Claude. I had a chance to catch up with her in study hall and she wasn't really in the mood for talking. Deuce and Cleo are still broken up, and to top it all off, the fashion show is completely cancelled. I couldn't get all the details from Clawdeen, but from what I could gather, it sounds like Frankie's fashion printer thingy can't print a thing. So Gil is not speaking to me. All my friends are either fighting or breaking up. No fashion show and still no rain? 3rd of February. I went to the beach today to clear my mind. I was convinced that Gil had broken up with me but just hadn't gotten around to actually telling me yet. I watched the waves roll in and out and tried to make sense of everything. Gil and I had been through so much, and I couldn't believe I let swimming consume me or that Gil wouldn't at least hear me out. I sat down on the sand and watched the tide lazily roll in. A few monster bras were out in the water paddling on their boards, just waiting for some real waves to come in. I watched them for a while until the sun dipped behind the water. I stood up and grabbed my floppies as a pair of hands covered my face. I gasped a bit and was ready to go full monster, but then I relaxed when I heard that voice. I have a surprise for the prettiest monster this side of the scarier reef. I turned around and Gil gave me a sheepish smile, and I jumped into his arms before I pulled back, all my emotions coming at me all at once. Gillington Weber, you've been avoiding me for days now, and you think you can just show up here out of the blue? Gil looked taken aback and said, "You're mad at me? You're the one that's been MIA, not me." I wasn't sure what to say next, but I remembered what my dad said about making waves. "I'm sorry, Gil," I started. "I didn't mean to blow you off for so long, and I really have just been so caught up with everything, I let myself forget about the one monster who means the most to me." Gil was about to reply, but just then the sky opened and rain came pouring down in big, sloppy drops. I looked at Gil and we both burst out laughing as he grabbed my hand and we started running. Gil led me to the secret cove I showed him once, and once we swam into it, he covered my eyes. He gently whispered and I opened my eyes to soft glowing lights everywhere, which I realized was algae and glowworms. There, just at the center of the cove, was a totally dank, shiny new surfboard. I hugged Gil and nothing more needed to be said. We spent the rest of the evening swimming while it rained, and I've never felt happier in my whole life. 4th of February. Crikey, Clawdeen Wolf just called, practically growling into the phone. So the fashion show is back on, and apparently I'm already late before I even knew what was happening. Great. I've got to join over to Frankie's to get fitted into my outfit. I hope it has platforms so I can surf right after the show. Last entry, 6th of February. Bruh, the show was a gnashing success! I don't know how Frankie and the other girls pulled it off, but our outfits were so fantastic. I couldn't believe they had been printed on some weird printer. I'm still gobsmacked by all the octopus details Clawdeen and Cleo added to my outfit, not to mention that they actually worked together. I walked the runway in this totally ghoul mermaid style dress with the Clawdeen jacket and this scary sweet little purse with a lionfish inside. I sent mom so many pics, I'm sure her cell phone was going crazy. The best part, my shoes were totally perfect to go surfing with Gil afterwards. Yeah, the waves were gnarly, but we held hands the whole time. Next, we have Draculaura's diary, starting off with the first entry on the 7th of January. OMV, it feels like it's ages since I've written in my diary. Life has truly been busy these days, and I'm barely keeping up. I'm sure my face looks like I'm 2,000 years old instead of 16,000. I pulled an Friday working on my article for the Monster High newspaper, the Gory Gazette, about new trends in vegetarianism, including plant-based meat. I've been making fantastic recipes with bouilloned meat and grim possible burgers, though finding taste tasters has been a bit of a challenge. My boyfriend Claude Wolf is a werewolf who loves his steaks rare and won't come near my new recipe for grim goulash. And Count Fabulous, my best bat friend, prefers bugs over leftover veggies. That leaves me only with my father, Count Dracula, the world's most famous vampire and lover of all things blood. He doesn't understand my vegetarianism, and at least once a year I get the talk. Basically, he believes I need to give up being a vegetarian because it is unnatural and unmonster-like. So the day he eats one of my recipes is the day I eat double meat screech style with Claude. Yuck. 11th of January. Yesterday's feeling practice was scarier than father's fashion sense. Cleo was in a monstrous mood, and I don't know who got her all unraveled, but we all paid dearly for it. Nobody could understand her complicated pyramid routine, and we all ended up in a heap. Then she suddenly announced that we were going to hold a fundraiser for new cheerleading uniforms and needed ideas. I thought we could do a plant-based bake sale, but the squad didn't seem too enthused, and so we decided to do a fashion show instead. Aw, that's too bad. The carrots in my garden would be great for a homemade carrot bread. Maybe father would enjoy that instead. While my BFF Clawdeen Wolf was here studying after school, I started a new recipe for bouillon sliders with beefsteak tomatoes. Father walked in while I was pulling them out of the skillet, and the whole kitchen was super smoky. I tried to get him to try one along with Clawdeen, but I might as well have offered him steak skewered garlic kebabs. He walked out with his fangs bared, but I did catch Clawdeen sneaking a second bite. I might just get her to join Team Vamp. Vampires advocating meatless proteins after all. 15th of January. I'm still really confused about what happened today. The day started off perfectly fine until freeleading practice was suddenly cancelled. We were supposed to talk details for the fashion show, but Cleo was nowhere to be found. I headed to the mall with Clawdeen and Frankie, starting to scout outfits for the show and meet Claude in the food court for a quick bite. The food court is so lacking in vegetarian options, but they do have really good street style and spookicinos, so I don't mind it too much. Anyways, we found this fantastic boutique that had creeperific looks and scare accessories. I wish I could point father in the direction of the store. He's constantly buying me clothes that were in when he was 16,000 years old, but I wouldn't be caught alive in those clothes. Anyway, I met Claude afterwards in the food court, and he was in such a weird mood. He got really cagey when I mentioned Cleo's mood lately and our cancelled practice. Get this, he quickly changed the subject to my article for the Grey Gazette, so I know something's wrong. The day Claude Wolf wants to talk the protein count in kidney beans is when I know something is wrong. We basically drove home in silence, and he gave me a quick kiss and drove away. Something has got that wolf's fur all ruffled, and I intend to find out. 21st of January. Normally, Claude will wait with me after school before I attend the Grey Gazette staff meeting, but today, he disappeared as soon as the bell rung. I got this really cryptic message from him on my iCoffin about not being able to make it, and he would catch up with me later, but he never did. I was in such a bad mood. Father gave me a little kiss on the forehead after he pointed out the grammatical errors in my article. What is going on? 25th of January. Oh my ghoul, father is in a furious mood tonight. Turns out he ate my leftover vegan vampire chili and didn't realize it until I went to eat it for dinner. It was spicy and totally vegetarian, two of father's pet peeves. I apologized profusely for not properly labeling it, but it was too late. I got treated to a mini version of the talk and had to promise to keep my quote experiments on my side of the fridge. Honestly, I think he's just mad he actually enjoyed a vegetarian meal. There wasn't one drop of chili left. 28th of January. I wish I could crawl back into my bed and start this whole day over. I don't know what happened, but somehow my vegetarian trends article didn't save on my computer, and now I have to write it all over again by tomorrow afternoon. Frankie's feeling zapped because the 3D screen printer she invented to make clothes for the fashion show is not working. The show and Frankie are literally falling apart at the seams, and to make matters worse, Claude is still being super weird. After the day I was having, I had enough and called him out on his behavior. I told him it's not okay for us to keep secrets from each other and asked him to tell me what's going on. He refused to tell me what was wrong, only that it's private, and he made a promise to keep everything under wraps. I got so mad I stormed out of the creepateria and ran crying to my locker, totally ruining my makeup, by the way. Thank goodness Frankie helped me fix my face before class. Even if I could see my reflection, I would have been too teary-eyed to care. I hate fighting with Claude, especially when I don't even know what we're fighting about. 1st of February. Last night was so crazy, I didn't even have the energy to write in my diary or look at the collection of books Confabulous gathered to cheer me up. It all started with Claude leaving me a note on my locker asking me to meet him after school. We hadn't really hung out since that day I confronted him in the cafeteria, so I was a little shocked to see the note. I gently tucked it into my notebook and walked to class with Clawdeen, who thankfully didn't ask too many questions. Then cheerleading practice was cancelled again and Cleo was nowhere to be found. Cleo never misses a chance to boss us around, let alone cancel practice 2 times in a row. Even though I was still feeling really down, I convinced the other ghouls to put together a scare package and take it over to Cleo, who obviously needed some cheering up. Clawdeen must have noticed my mood because she actually didn't growl too much and decided to tag along. Since we were going to Cleo's after school though, that meant I couldn't see Claude. Part of me felt horrible, but the other part was just too upset with him to care. After gathering a few of Cleo's favorite things, we landed on her doorstep, and the minute she opened the door, I could tell this wasn't a royal tantrum, something was definitely wrong. She explained that she and Deuce broke up, and while Deuce seemed to be doing just fine, she couldn't bear to face anyone at school. My heart was breaking for her. I hate to see any monster heartbroken, but then she mentioned Claude. She looked at me and said, Deuce told Claude about our breakup and we both asked him to keep this under wraps. Draculaura, you've got a great boyfriend and we've been driving him crazy. But before Cleo could finish, I ran out of there immediately and called Claude to meet at the coffin bin. The second he showed up, I ran and gave him the biggest hug and apologized for being so batty. He looked really sheepish and apologized too. He hated keeping anything from me, but he gave his word. I held my hand up to his cheek, snuggled into his fur as he wrapped his arms around me. Last night was the first good night's sleep I've had in a while. Thank goodness everything is back to normal. Last entry, 6th of February. The fashion show was a total success! Cleo and Frankie worked together to get the tree screen printer up and running, and we were totally able to save the show. It was all claws on deck to pull the show together, and it couldn't have gone better. Even Cleo and Clawdeen worked together to quickly design our looks, which is like trying to mix oil and water or get father to eat another bowl of vegetarian chili. I have the best BFF in the world. Clawdeen totally put together a fantastic look for me, and I can't stop vamping over it. I mean, only a truly fashion-forward mind could think of a mesh sleeve that doubles as a fashion statement and UV protection. When I walked the runway, the students of Monster High went totally bats. Even Headmistress Bloodgood gave a little nod of approval. But the best part of all, at the end of the runway was my colossal boyfriend waiting with the prettiest nightshades and the most gorgeous bouquet of blood oranges I had ever seen. Cleo was truly right. I really am the luckiest monster ever. Last up, we have Frankenstein's diary, starting off with the first entry, the 12th day of January. I think it's day 4070 something. I've completely lost track. It's been a scary busy semester, and the other day free leading practice was just as freaky. It all started with Cleo Denial's super complicated free leading routine that ended in a fear meet that seemed like it needed 3 instruction sheets to build. Everyone looked doubtful we could pull it off, but have you ever tried saying no to a denial? As soon as the pyramid went up, we all came tumbling down. Truthfully though, I did get a bit distracted. I was scanning the field for number 7. That's not his name, obviously, but that's all I have to identify him by as of right now. He's a football player with the coolest accent. I caught a glimpse of him just as we had completed the top of the pyramid, and before I knew it, Draculaura was helping me up while Clawdeen grabbed my leg. If I can't even keep it together when I see number 7 across the field, then how will I ever talk to him in person? Anyway, at least I've got our February Frights fashion show fundraiser for new free leading uniforms to keep me busy. I totally agree with Clawdeen. Our uniforms are looking a bit worse for wear, but I'm not saying that to Cleo. 14th day of January. Tonight at dinner, Dad was going on and on about his new project. Mom and I usually don't follow Dad's lab talk, but we let him go on because he loves his work. I mentioned the upcoming science scare at school, and Dad suddenly perked up. Oh no, too late. Frankie, you should enter. Let's put that old Stein ingenuity to work. He started rattling off project ideas, including a solar-powered lawnmower that also doubled as a monster guard dog. Mom chuckled and told him to let me figure it out. He smiled and said, I'm sure a bolt of inspiration will hit you soon enough, and boom, off you go. It's usually me hitting people with things like my arms or my legs, so I'm not sure what Dad was talking about. I don't even know what I would create for the science scare. Maybe a stronger monster titanium thread so I can actually talk to a monster at school without losing a limb or causing a blackout? The 17th day of January. Oh, zaps! That was right. I did get hit by a bolt of inspiration. Well, more like a door, but let me explain. A few days ago, freeleading practice was cancelled, so I headed to the mall with my BFFs Clawdeen and Draculaura to start looking for outfits for the upcoming fashion show. I wasn't totally convinced that I could walk down the runway without falling apart from all the attention, but Clawdeen wouldn't hear of it. No way, girlfriend. You're absolutely walking in the show. That figure is too fantastic to be sitting on the sidelines. Besides, your BFFs will be right there beside you, looking just as awesome. I felt a lot better knowing my friends would be walking the runway with me, and we kept searching the mall for ghoul looks. We found ourselves inside this totally voltageous boutique, but quickly realized the prices were just as shocking. As I was in the dressing room, I could hear Draculaura and Clawdeen talking about the show. Draculaura said, I wish we could just make the clothes like this. It would be fantastic. And that's when it hit me. Well, the door hit me because my bolt got caught up in a chainmail shirt and I lost my balance, causing a walking fashion frightmare. But I didn't care. I was too excited. I knew now I was going to enter the science scare and make spectacular outfits for the fashion show. The 22nd day of January. I wish that bolt of inspiration had been a bolt of actual lightning because I'm already stuck on this project. Why did I think I could create a printer that could print actual clothes? That night I came home from the mall, I immediately got to work on a 3-screen printer. I rushed through dinner, thanked Mom and Dad, and then hurried to my lab to start building the ultimate fashion machine. Imagine a printer that could make any gorgeous outfit a monster could think of. It was going to be totally creeptastic until it wasn't. I can't figure out how to make the 3-screen printer actually print something. So I pulled an old fighter and even ate some of Dad's leftover sandwiches for inspiration. That was a big mistake though, because Whatsit wouldn't even cuddle with me due to my sauerkraut breath. I know I should ask Dad for help, but am I really a Stein if I can't figure out something as simple as this? My dad is literally the most famous monster scientist of all, and I can't tell him or my friends that I'm failing. The 24th day of January. Clawdeen asked about the printer today and I got so nervous my bolts reversed and slammed a bunch of locker doors shut, including Deuces, who was really distracted, and the door narrowly missed his Snakes, who hissed at me in annoyance. I half-heartedly reassured Clawdeen that the printer would work and rushed off to class. Just my luck, number 7 walked by and said hello in his creeperific accent, but then my bolt sparked and his eye coffin got stuck to my neck. At least my leg didn't go flying off this time. Bolts. When I came home from school, Dad wanted to know how the project was coming along, and I shouted a quick fine before running downstairs to the lab. I could hear him tell Mom, look at our ghoul. She's already got that Stein focus. Can't stop until the problem is solved. Anyway, currently I'm sucking another spookachino for a jolt of energy so I can pull another old fighter. This has to work, otherwise I'm gonna be totally mortified. The 26th day of January. Oh my ghoul, I pulled 2 old fighters and ate more sauerkraut than any ghoul should eat, and I still couldn't get the printer to make a sleeve, let alone a whole outfit. I dropped out of the science scare and had to break it to my friends today that the printer isn't going to work. The look on their faces was worse than Dad's when Whatsit gets into the lab and chews up everything. With no outfit and Cleo all of a sudden canceling practices left and right, the squad decided it was probably best to cancel the fashion show and find another way to raise money for new uniforms. My ghoul friends were totally understanding, but I could tell they were disappointed. I've never been this mortified in my whole life. I dragged through classes all day and was so relieved to be home until my dad asked me about the science scare. I don't know what happened, if it was lack of sleep, all the sauerkraut I've had, or the spookachinos, but I went totally bolt on my dad. I yelled and said, maybe I don't have the Stein brains after all, just leave me alone. Dad yelled out, Karlov's crypt, as I ran down to the stairs and slammed my door. Once it felt so bad, he curled up in my lap and snuggled with me until I fell asleep. The 29th day of January. Still feeling super zapped out about letting my ghoul friends down and dropping out of the science scare. I'm not the only one who needs charge because Draculaura looks super done in the fangs all day. I wonder if this has anything to do with her needing a makeup touch-up the other day. Ghoul friend's eyes were super puffy and her makeup looked like a fright. I didn't ask too many questions since I had my own drama going on. I still hadn't talked to Dad after my shocking blow-up a few nights ago. I knew eventually I was going to have to make things right, so when I got home from school today, I fixed up a mustard sauerkraut stinkwich, took a deep breath, and headed down to the lab. Dad had his wielder mask on and jumped a little when I tapped his shoulder. Peace offering, I held up the stinkwich and he gave me a little smile before kissing my forehead. He ate while I explained what happened the other night, listening intently and grunting understandingly. As I finished, he said, "Frankie, my ghoul, you will learn in this unlife that failure can be success and giving up is the worst thing a ghoul could do." He gave me a wink and put back on his welder mask. I gave him a nudge and headed up to do my homework. Still wondering how I could save the show, but glad I fixed things with my favorite monster. The 2nd day of February. Torches and pitchforks, what day is it? I've been down in my lab for days because, oh my ghoul, we figured out the printer. Okay, so it all started with yet another cancelled practice. Draculaura knew something had to be wrong because Cleo loves bossing us around during practice. She convinced some of us ghouls to put together a scare package and take it over to Cleo to cheer her up. And even Clawdeen joined in, even though I know Cleo is her least favorite ghoul. After grabbing a few things from the coffin bean, we headed over to her totally ghoul mansion, and Cleo's sister Nephra met us at the door. Did I mention that Nephra's attitude makes Cleo look pleasant? If I ever get a sister, I gotta remind Dad to set her battery to all positive. Sheesh. We knocked a few times and Cleo didn't want to answer, thinking it was her sister. Don't blame her, I wouldn't want to answer to Nephra either, but when we yelled out, irritating the servants, Cleo finally answered. Oh my bolts. The minute Cleo answered the door, I knew it was bad. She tried to put up a royal front, but eventually she gave up and told us that she and Deuce had broken up. No wonder she had been canceling practices left and right, and Deuce's snakes had been more irritable than usual. We all reassured her in a group hug and told her it would be okay. A relationship doesn't define any ghoul. Eventually things turned to the fashion show, and when I explained the printer wasn't working, the old Cleo was back in full form. She grabbed my hand and led me over to an ornate jewelry box, opening the lid to reveal the most shocking gems and jewelry I had ever seen. She said, "Look, I don't normally let commoners handle my jewelry, but this is obviously an emergency." She then picked up the most intricate loop of beautiful threads and fabrics, all weaved together with a sparkling golden string. This is super ancient, okay? It belonged to the goddess Tyet, and she was awesome at weaving and keeping mummies looking chic. We can use it to keep the printer running and create looks totally befitting of royalty, and something for you ghouls too. We bolted back to my lab and carefully installed Tyet's thread, and zaps, it worked! The printer began wildly making layers of clothing, and I screamed, "It's alive! It's alive!" I must have made quite the commotion because Mom and Dad came running down the stairs. When I showed them the printer was working, Dad yelled, "Mary Shelley's ghost, it's alive!" He gave me a great big hug and gave Cleo a fist bump, which did not go over well. It doesn't matter. The printer works, the fashion show is saved, and we're going to look so cool. Monster High isn't going to know what hit them. The 4th day of February, I had to beg Mr. Hackington to let me enter the science scare again. I had to promise to clean up after it was over in order for him to let me participate. But when he saw what I had created, I think he was a little glad to let me back in. He kept marveling over the speed of the printer and the cool clothes it had created. I definitely think the light switch shoes will give me an edge over the competition. Unless Ghoulia enters, that ghoul makes us all feel like stale brain muffins from the creepateria. Stitches crossed, I'm at least in the top 3. Last entry, the 6th day of February. The fashion show was a complete success. We worked until the very last minute. I wasn't even sure if we were gonna make it on time. I was literally printing scare accessories an hour before the show started. Clawdeen may have growled at a few ghouls who had mixed up the outfits, but we all pulled together to strut the runway. I took a deep breath, pulled my stitches a little tighter, and stepped out into the bright light. The crowd went totally bolt from my zapped out look, and I couldn't hide my smile. I paired the voltageous light switch heels with a sheer blouse with metallic skelet details and a shocking metal vest. And actually, Cleo helped me design my freaky fab skirt, which had scary sweet zippers and and finished off with a belt. Hearing the cheers from my friends and the other ghouls on Monster High, I have never felt more alive. Well, at least since my first day of being alive, but you know what I mean. But you wanna know what really gave me a charge? Finding a sweet note tucked into my locker after the show from a not-so-secret admirer. It's read, "I love the way you're put together, lass. Hoping to hang out soon with the prettiest ghoul ever." Oh, zaps! I think I'm gonna need some tighter Monstertanium thread after all. And those were all the 5 diaries from the Haunt Couture collection. Remember at the start of the video when I mentioned, I hope this video doesn't get too long, and now it's like an hour long? Well, that didn't last too long, did it? Oh my god. I am so sorry. I hope it didn't feel like a long video. I've listened to this video myself a couple of times, and I feel like the time does pass kind of quickly because the stories are just so entertaining and like really kind of like pulls you in. And because the story, like the base story is the same, but it's really interesting to hear the different perspectives from the different characters and like how it happens and how stuff happens differently for the other characters. And you know, you also get to see and you get to hear things that are personal to each character in each story. So I like how it's structured, and it's structured around the same, you know, goal and event, the fashion show, but the perspective, the story is completely different from every, you know, character. So I hope it was enjoyable, and I hope that just you liked it and it was okay. I tried my best to voice act. I didn't even try to like sound like the characters. I don't have a voice like that, but I tried to give each character their own vibe. So anyways, it's just me talking a lot, so I hope it was okay. Let me know if you liked it down below. And as always, share, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It's an hour-long video, you guys. I've never posted a video like this long, and I'm assuming I posted it successfully. You know, future Peach, I hope you did a good job. But yeah, I hope it's okay. Just, I would really mean a lot if you could like share and just like show support, because this is like really a big project. A few times I thought I lost the progress, and it's like all the progress you can't imagine. Like you keep retaking a voiceover clip, and it's like it gets really a lot. My voice got sore like the past days. So yeah, it's a lot. So I really hope you'll enjoy it. Stay safe, be kind. I hope this next time. Stay peachy. Kisses.